Being a dad is hard. It's high stakes. It takes a toll on our self-worth, mental health, and can be lonely. But why would we ever want to do something so important in isolation? Legacy Makers, a conversation for dads, is quite simply two normal dads having conversations about, you guessed it, being a dad. The highs, the lows, and the learnings along the way. We are four dads. We want to remedy the deficiency we see in community for dads, and we want to ruthlessly encourage dads on their journey to build lasting legacy for the faces they love the most.
All right, we're ready.
We're back. We're back. We're still in the new studio.
Yep.
I don't think we were rolling, but you're not happy with certain contrasts and chair fabrics and
I'm
a lot of
diva.
stuff. I'd tell you what, I'm glad we're just friends and I don't work for you, because I would not appreciate the feedback that you just provided about some of the things I would deem as little things. But everything matters, I guess, is my takeaway on that for you.
Something like that. Speaking of a high standard of excellence,
Yeah.
let's talk about Notre Dame football.
Let's also talk about how frustrating this football season has been for
the
people
dogs,
that follow really Georgia football.
Yeah.
Really Kennesaw, Georgia. The Harrison Hoya 5th grade team.
Yeah.
Not great.
Not great.
Not anyone's fault. I'm not casting blame on anybody. Very bad season.
Do you help coach this?
I don't.
Do you have any criticism about those coaches
Not
that
at
may
all.
tune in? Okay.
Not at all. I would have gotten way less out of the boys than they did.
There you go.
But
Okay.
bad season. Georgia Bulldogs, absolute.
Which, let's just for a second acknowledge the fact that we were ranked number 2 in the playoffs, and we consider this a bad season. So,
I
mean, it's a long cry from where we've been, but
here's the deal, though. No different than you talk to your children. When you have potential and you don't live up to your potential,
yeah,
or you have somebody that's making decisions on certain play calls that end up are horrific decisions, it's frustrating. But
the receivers have to catch the ball at some point.
And
So
you have to
just
execute. So we'll go there, and then the Falcons suck, as they always do. So we'll just leave that at that.
yeah, but I mean, at least the Falcons have made really smart decisions with their personnel and all that kind of stuff.
They've invested a lot of money in the right spots.
Hey, Kirk may have some free time for our podcast.
He did. We might get Kirk Cousins on finally.
We're trying to get that. Love Kirk Cousins as a dad. Let's just say this right here.
Love him. He seems like a good dude. I got to meet him. He's a nice guy. So anyway, we're gonna give some flowers to Notre Dame,
which is tough for both of us to do.
Tough for both of us to do, but I'll tell you, their coach is super inspiring. A young guy.
Did you say you met him?
I got to meet him very briefly about a year and a half ago, and he could not have been a nicer person. Super you
don't want to brag about where you met him?
No, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was fine. But he was a great guy. He has 6 children, so he's not only, I think he's late 30s, 6 kids, and, doing pretty good things. But I've been really enjoyed watching this run, because they typically don't get a lot of attention nationally, but they've really messed up in some big spots. And so they don't have a lot of respect as like a program that can win the big game. And they've won a bunch of big games. And they have this thing that they keep saying as a team when they get down or they face adversity, this kind of I think the internal thing they use is, we're holding the pen. That's like their rallying cry. We're holding the pen. And really what that comes from is Marcus Freeman, their coach, talks a lot about history is written by the conquerors, and we're holding the pen, meaning we are in control. We're in this spot. Don't want to blow it.
We're writing our story.
Correct.
We are the masters of our
Correct.
destiny.
Things aren't happening to us. We get to determine, and then we are going to, and I think that's a really important message in life. It's important in business and families, this empowerment of that life doesn't happen to you. This is not a dress rehearsal. Let's take action. And I love that. You and I were talking about that, where it's actually a little scary that that's not how it works as a dad.
Yeah, and let's just pause that. It's not that we aren't in control of how we choose to act as a dad. It's not that we don't have some, I don't even like the word control, but some of the emphasis on what our family's doing. But we don't necessarily get to write the story that our kids think about us as a dad.
Correct. That's right. Doesn't absolve us of having, to do the right thing, but we don't have editing rights, right? Like we can write what we want our kids to think about them, us and their childhood and the lessons that they learned from us, but we do not have editing rights in the story that they tell, the story they tell themselves, the story they're going to tell others. And so as dads, we need to realize that you do not just get to, hey, I'm going to show up this way. I'm going to have these conversations. I'm going to give them these experiences. And then therefore they are going to have a childhood that they remember as XYZ, and the lessons are going to stick, and they're going to be people that are going to be productive the way that I need them to be. And so I think we need to realize that, but we need to think about how we approach being dads very intentionally to ensure we're giving ourselves the best chance that when they do write their story and they think about the memories that they had as children, that it's something that we would be proud of.
Yeah. Okay. I think the question we've got to ask is, how do we do that?
Yeah.
Because in individual moments, that is easier sometimes. If I think about, this little excerpt or this article of the story, but if you think about the entire book, it's tough to stay consistent over time. So I think one of the things you and I were talking about is that you can't focus only on the marquee moments, the mountaintop experiences, these like wow pieces as the entirety of the story we're telling. Like if the whole book is like, oh, it's built around these 5 moments I really showed up and we spent a lot of money on the trip and I was disconnected from my phone, that's not the story. The story is in the mundane.
Yeah, I think that would be the number one thing. I think as we think about a few tactics or ideas, that's number one for me. And I'm guilty of this quite frequently. In a lot of our conversations, sometimes I probably reinforce this in the wrong way, meaning we'll be, hey, we're going on that trip in a couple months, or I can't wait to go. We're going to the beach here. We just got to get through these next couple weeks, guys. But I think sometimes the story we tell ourselves, especially when we're out of harmony in terms of the time that we're spending and the impact we're making at home because of, for whatever reason, a busy season at work or travel is ramped up, or we're just, we're not as present as we need to be. It can almost be a cop out of, hey, it's all right. Like I'm going to make up for it. I'm going to make up for it because we're going on this trip or we're going to have this big experience. And then that's going to almost like catch me up to being the dad that I need to be. I think both are really important. But it doesn't have to be these big expensive trips, but like big moments are important. Moments of adventure, moments of something that's not normally in kind of the day to day. You've got to do that. But if you are not showing up consistently and intentionally, and I think is kind of drives some stress, but with urgency, then you're going to have so there could be some, opportunity for the story to really not be what you want it to be.
Yeah. I think intellectually I agree with you. It's a lot tougher in practice.
It is a lot tougher in practice, but I think it's more around just the awareness that I told this story on a earlier podcast of a buddy sharing this story with one of his daughters who is now grown in her 20s. And she shared with him like some of the best memories she has from her childhood were him driving her to her volleyball practice in 7th grade because it was just them two in the car and it was a consistency and they just had this time. And she remembers the songs that they listened to and some conversations but he would have never said that was the most important time in her childhood. And so I don't think it necessarily has to be this like every moment. Okay, I'm walking into the room. I'm going to be with my son. I've got to be ready. No, it's just be present and be just ready to kind of ebb and flow where the thing goes, but don't miss out on that. Don't minimize those things.
There's got to be a level of consistency between the mountaintops and the others. Cause we talk about this in business and in culture that, we at our company, we love big retreats and exciting moments and taking our whole team somewhere. But we talk about this fact that in business, that culture is made in the mundane moments and it's memorialized in the big ones. But there just can't be a gap between the two. That's the same thing here, that it's being a dad, the story is probably the meat of the story is written in the mundane, and then these highlights are going to be the Disney trip, the going for ice cream after the baseball game, whatever those things are. But if that's the only time you show up, it's going to be like, yeah, Dad was never there, but these few times he really...
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, think about it in a business context. Like, you can go on a big retreat and it could be centered around team building and culture and psychological safety, and bring in all these experts to talk about why that's important, and we're doing all the things. Then next week at the office, something happens where somebody comes in and they share something with you, or they mess up and make a mistake, and all of a sudden they're getting screamed at, or there's disciplinary action, or they've been depositioned because of a mistake that was made. And all of a sudden, wait a second, I thought at the retreat, psychological safety was important.
That was just the talking point at the retreat.
And there's no coming back from that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you lose that trust with that associate and honestly the organization. But it's kind of funny how we don't think about the same thing in family moments, right? Like, if you're saying in these, whether it's on a trip or there's just this big moment for a one-on-one conversation that, hey, these are things that are really important to me, and then you're living it completely different. When the audio doesn't match the visual, especially with little ones, like it's you're putting yourself behind. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this. One, there's got to be an intentionality, a consistency, and an urgency.
Yep. With
the way that we're writing the story, or we're hopefully living a story that they are going to
tell. The experience
one day
we're providing them, right?
But we also sometimes have to give some context, because they may not always interpret things the way that we think they will interpret it. Like, even when you say the right things, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be received in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, man, I got a funny one on that. So I work at the Coca-Cola company, which I love. Pepsi is a amazing company.
Never heard of that.
Never heard of them?
No.
Great company, great competitor. Nothing but respect for them. But no different than like Georgia versus Florida. Like, there's a kind of an important competition there, right?
Yeah. And one is clearly superior and one is inferior.
Yeah, you can fill in which one's which. But so my kids, like, they're in on it, right? Like, they know that Dad is, they literally, I think early in their lives, believed I was a superhero fighting the blue guy. Like, that was what I did every day. But we would talk about, like, competition, and this is happening, and, we're trying to win. But it was more in the vein of, like, this is where Daddy works, and this is the kind of stuff Daddy does, and it's important to try to do your best and to win. So I remember getting a call from Brittany. I was traveling, and she's like, they were like driving home from a grocery store visit. She's like, "Hi, you would never guess what your sons did today," which typically, as we all know, whenever like ownership is only on one of the parents,
like around
like 6 and 3.5 ish.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, what did they do? She's like, well, we're at the grocery store, and I was in the beverage aisle, and there was a gentleman with a Pepsi shirt on filling the shelves, and the boys were literally booing him as they went by. So we may want to talk about respect and being kind when you're home, because that didn't really translate to
Can we just stop for a second? You're hearing this from Brittany while you're on the trip. Somewhere there's a sense of pride in you that's swelling up. Like,
I actually had the wherewithal to hit the mute button and just like was very excited about this. Right?
It's kind of like when we heard the story of when Benny like made a tackle or something and flexed over this guy.
He did the throat slash.
The throat slash.
Yeah.
Throat slash. That's right.
Another good moment.
Okay. Okay, so they're booing the Pepsi guy in the middle of the grocery store.
Yeah. That
now. As funny as it is, it's not your intention.
It's not my intention when I was sharing with them about, like, what I do for a living, and they took that as, okay, like, then when we see the bad guy, like, we want to make sure he knows or she knows that they're the bad guy. So again, I think it's a silly kind of story, but it's a reminder that just because you're saying something, they don't always interpret it the way that you want it to. Like, it's just, you got to be really thoughtful about not just sharing something with them, but maybe explaining it, repeating it.
Providing the context.
Context is important.
I mean, it's so funny. We keep going back to corporate examples that have application here, but that's, you think about all the time in business where you don't provide the right context, and it doesn't matter the content of what you're saying. And
Right.
so I think that's good for kids, how they're going to interpret things. So that's given the extra pieces to it, and it's also backing up with our actions. Had they seen you boo a Pepsi guy before? Is that where
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't believe so. I don't think that was behavior that was caught nor taught. But
okay,
that's where we were.
So giving them context on how you interpret things, I think that's really good. So consistent. That first one, I don't know. We have a sticky phrase of this, but there's got to be some kind of a consistency and urgency in what we're sharing, not just the big moments, but the day-to-day, the mundane. The second is, how do we interpret things? Something I shared with you is kind of a third point is, I feel like I focus on the right things, but I don't always emphasize with the right ratio the things that are most important.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example. I would say, doing well at, this soccer game or this baseball game is important. And I would also say doing well at school or, something with church is important. And sometimes I spend a larger quantity of time focused on something that is important, but it's not as important as the other thing. Or even when I'm correcting, emphasizing the right components of why that's important. You and I talk a lot about the lessons you learn from team sports.
Right.
It's not just hey, it's not just you need to do better. It's you need to do better and pay attention because, and hitting the right things. How do you see that show up?
Yeah, I think that especially, I see myself doing this. It's in the context of sports. The feedback loop is pretty quick, right? Because you're watching them, they're doing something wrong, or you feel like they need to do something different, better, and you spend your time trying to correct or hammer that. At home with behavior, right? Behavior things sometimes I feel like I'm correcting all the time. I think that if we're not careful, all they're going to be hearing is being corrected or this needs, but they don't even, you're not connecting the why behind it. And so one tactic on that, I think that we can consider and really try to do a better job of, in the context of, hey, you moped, you struck out and you cried, or you were moping around. Instead of being upset with them about that, it's saying, listen, hey, bud, here's the deal. You are a part of a team, and everybody on that team has to play their part in order for the team to win. It's not about one person. And so you were feeling bad for yourself. I understand you were disappointed, but now the whole team is impacted. And I think making sure they understand the bigger lesson as to why you're upset, because the concern I always have with my kids is that they're going to feel as if it's a performance-based relationship. Dad is happy with me when I excel at sports or school or whatever activity, but when I do not, I hear about it. Versus being able to say, listen, I don't care about the strikeout. I care about how you behaved after the strikeout. It's okay to be disappointed, but if you let that carry over, now you're impacting other people. And as we've talked about, we're selfless, right? So I think that's the thing we have to do, because I don't want the story of my kids to tell themselves or others down the line is, hey, it was a kind of a stressful deal. And that's something I would probably never realize if you're not thoughtful, because you think you're just doing the right thing and you're probably trying to correct the right thing, but you're not tying in the broader impact. Cleaning your room, making your bed. Okay. It's much bigger than you're leaving your room a mess. You need to respect your stuff. You need to be thankful for what you have. So I think that's a big part of it.
Something that's coming to mind as you say this is, because you're talking a lot about the correction, but it also is the right ratio when we are praising or offering affirmation of those same things.
Exactly.
Not just praising, when you said that performance piece, because I grew up in a great environment where a lot of encouragement, but it also, the encouragement was tied to all the things I did well, and it led to a lot of my life. I'm looking for affirmation for other people. And so that's I think it's just, let's just double click on it. It's the right ratio. It's not just the ratio of correction versus praising. It's whether you're correcting or affirming, you've got to be sharing the most important lesson that you want them to take away. And it can't be, you did it wrong, you did it wrong, you did it wrong, and here's why. That here's why has got to be the bigger piece.
You know, when this clicked for me, it was about, it was within the last couple of years. I remember after a game, Brittany and I had driven separately, and Cam, my oldest, drove home with her. And we got home, and I was like, hey, bud, can I talk to you? And I was going to give him a lot of praise on how he played and just what I saw from how he interacted with his teammates. But the look on his face was like, almost like, okay, Dad's saying, can I talk to you? Let me get a couple minutes with you. And his immediate reaction was
going to be
there's going to be correction or you didn't do this. And it was this moment of like, okay, that's his experience. And we write our story based on our experience. It's not based on words people tell us. It's not the way that you interpret things, the way that you feel things and experience things then drives the story. And so it was this moment when he was, 8 or 9 years old that really has helped me now. I try to make sure that it's try to find equal ways to praise, but also provide feedback. But again, it's always rooted in these are what's important. And I think, kids need to no different than in a professional setting. You got to have context. You need to understand the why behind it. It's not just you're not doing well. It's you're not doing well. And here's the impact of what that could look like. So I don't want to be known as the corrector. Right? Only. So
we have autonomy in the way that our kids are going to see us. Like we have we get to influence that story.
Yes.
But we don't ultimately get to write it.
That's right.
And so the way they're going to write it is going to be based on the consistency and the mundane moments. It's going to be based on us helping them interpret the things we say to make sure they're right. And the ratio, what they hear most often is probably what's going to end up in that etched memories of the stories they tell. Yeah. So any final encouragement for dads of how we do that?
No, I think, again, I think the awareness is really important. It's one of these things that you're really not, to your point, we don't get to necessarily tell them what their experience is. We have to create that for them. And that's done a little bit at a time, and it's done over the course of the time you have the most influences, is really when they're underneath your roof. So it's never too late to start. Get after it, but be really thoughtful about what the experience you want to provide is.
I think that's good advice. All right, man.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to Legacy Makers with Kevin Scott and Eric Blumenthal. Make sure you download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
This podcast is a production of BG Ad Group. All rights reserved.